Chris Sheeran back to here on Yankees batting practice today, driven by Audi. Time now to head down to the Trop and welcome in our Meredith Marakovits for the latest edition of Runs, Hits, and Errors. And Meredith, last night, CC Sabathia had it going, as we saw in the first 5 innings of that game, but came unraveled, undone in the 6th. He seemed so frustrated at the end of that game, and you have to feel for him after that first performance through the first 5 and then blowing up there in the 6th inning last night.
Chris, you most certainly do, and it wasn't just yesterday. I think that's a season of frustration for CC Sabathia, just not being able to make the big pitch when he needs to, and that's kind of been the story all season long. And you look at the first 5, Joe Girardi said after the game he thinks that's the best that he has thrown the ball so far this season. You looked at his fastball at times, up to 95 miles an hour. His changeup was working for him. He was inducing a lot of ground ball outs, which is something that he struggled with earlier in the season and even in prior starts. He had given up a lot of home runs this season, elevating that ball in the strike zone, the main culprit for that, and that's really what you saw in that 6th inning. Lost command a little bit, elevating the ball, and the Rays were able to get some hits. And this is a team where if you make a mistake, they will make you pay, and they did just that to CC Sabathia. But overall, I think you look at the outing and you say 6 1/3, had some good stuff early on. You look at it as a positive. It's just tough now to see September right around the corner and continuing to say, well, there is a positive, there is a silver lining to this. At this point in time, you heard it from CC Sabathia himself after the game, we just need to win games. But aside from CC Sabathia, just 2 runs for that Yankees offense, and that really might be one of the bigger culprits in all of it, the fact that they really couldn't score many runs. They did get the 2 early ones off of David Price, and then, of course, CC Sabathia could not hold that lead. So, you know, if you're a fan and if you're the Yankees and if you're Joe Girardi and you're CC Sabathia, I think you need to take the positive out of it and say, look, he threw really well early. Hopefully he can build on this and he can turn into kind of the old CC Sabathia that you've seen in seasons past. Well,
they're going to need that as they head down the stretch, obviously, down in September. Now, Meredith, how about Derek Jeter? Give us an update on his status. He ended his rehab last night at Scranton Wilkes-Barre. What's the team's thought process on Jeter now?
Well, it still looks as though he's going to join the team tomorrow in Toronto. Exactly how he will be used, that remains to be seen. Joe Girardi voicing some concerns about the turf there, not just with Derek Jeter, but with Alex Rodriguez as well. And here's a look at Derek Jeter's numbers during that rehab assignment. Played in 3 games, 2 for 3 the first day, 0 for 3 yesterday. Did score a run on a wild pitch, and then, I should say, 2 days ago, and then yesterday, 1 for 3 with the single. Now, I asked Joe Girardi, because he had kind of commented the other day not knowing if Jeter had been running 100% yet, and he was very clear saying it's not because he can't run 100%, but we're asking him to play smart, to make sure you're controlled when you're running. So that's something that they're hoping carries over when he does come back up here to the big club. There are certainly going to be times defensively and on the base paths when he's going to have to bust it a little bit, but they just want to make sure that he's smart about when he is doing so. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits into this lineup, into this team, how much he's used in Toronto with that turf, and what type of player he is when he gets back.
Now, taking the bane of their existence, the Yankees used to have Manny Ramirez fall under that phrase there, but now it's Evan Longoria for the Rays. He's 5 for 22 though against Ivan Nova. He hasn't really lit him up, but Nova will have to be obviously careful with Evan Longoria today.
Without a doubt, and you've seen him hurt the Yankees so far this series. He has 22 home runs over the last 6 years. That's the most against the Yankees of any player in the major league. So Evan Longoria is certainly no stranger to hurting the Yankees, and you see his numbers against Ivan Nova. 227 hitter, does have 1 home run, drove in 2. And you look at Ivan Nova, he struggled a little bit last time out, gave up 4 runs early, but Joe Girardi said the thing that he liked about Ivan Nova that maybe you wouldn't have seen earlier in the season, maybe wouldn't have seen the second half of last year, he was able to stop the bleeding, make the adjustments, and really power through a couple more innings and give the Yankees some distance and a chance to win the game. So Ivan Nova, a guy that they're feeling very good about, and let's be honest, this team needs this win. You don't want to come here to Tampa having won 5 straight, 10 out of your last 12, and then go ahead and get swept by the Rays. So they're certainly counting on Ivan Nova a lot this afternoon.
But it was a tough task going down there in Tampa. You have Chris Archer on Friday, you have David Price yesterday, and today you have Alex Cobb throwing for Joe Madden in the Rays. Now, he has made 2 starts since getting hit in the head against the Royals on June 15th. As we take a look back at that right now, Eric Hosmer just drills him right there, Meredith. But since he's come back, he's been pretty good for Joe Madden and company.
Chris, I don't know how you feel about that video, but that is just brutal to watch that happen. And it's amazing that he's back and pitching as well as he is. And he hasn't thrown a ton of innings, but he has had success. And he's a guy that first time through the order, sometimes it takes him a little bit of time first inning to get his control and really find out what's working for him. So if the Yankees are going to get to him, they best do it early, because if you let him continue, he's a guy that typically shuts you down later in the games. Now, he'll throw a lot of changeups. He's a guy that certainly has a good changeup. So no easy task, and you look at that rotation as a whole for the Rays, certainly a strong suit, and now they have a little bit more offense. They certainly have Longoria, but other guys in that order that can do some damage, and they're a different team than they were maybe a couple years ago. Their GM said the other day, we feel like this is the deepest roster we've ever had. So exactly what that translates to, where they wind up in the division, that remains to be seen, but any team facing that pitching staff, certainly no easy task.
Yeah, and it's a big game. It's a big game for the Yankees every game, the remainder of the schedule, Meredith. Yeah. But especially this afternoon against Cobb, they have to take some momentum to Toronto. They've dominated the Jays this season, and they need to get a win today before they go to Toronto.
They really do, and Joe Girardi was asked about that prior to the game. Just mentally, do these guys need a win to not get swept by this Rays team after playing such hot baseball prior to this series? And he said, yeah, you know what, I think they do. Obviously, the wins are important. He had talked about we need to win series if we want to have a chance at this thing. And, you know, Lou Piniella and I talked about it a little earlier today. You're not going to win every game. It would be nice if you did, but that's not a realistic goal. So you have to focus on today. You have to turn the page quick and really try to get out there and get after it. And, you know, if they lose this game, it's not the end of the world, but it certainly doesn't make you feel good. You were in a situation where you could have gained ground in the division, and you wind up losing ground in the division. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out.
Still a lot of games against those AL East teams left in this season. Meredith, thank you very much. We'll see you in just a bit on the pregame show with Nancy and Jack.
Sounds good, Chris.